I'm E.
I'm Rob.
I'm Miles.
Welcome to the next movement, folks.
Memory, that fickle bastard. A B-roll of the bitter hours. Sat and watched the reruns till the spite touch was mitigated. Absentee participant. Unhinged, mostly sought solace. Now it burned through the palm, holding rosaries. A charm life is. Glimpsed a burnt sky and periphery. Been at this exact spot so many times I thought survival required no accomplices. Relay and speak no. Rather jump from motherships that covet them. But the aforementioned haunt lost in reprisals. So don't you worry about those cosigns. The support will be moral at best, dead on arrival. Stupid, there ain't nothing behind that curtain I ain't used to. Room 101, love lingering. Party slogan etched into the moments fleeting. When I see her next, we both know the reasons. Two types of sacrifice teetering, but a gun pointed at your head'll make the speak real easy. Strange fruit in the sangria, going through the motion swinging. No meeting of the minds with the forefathers. Cope and treat the bias like it's surefire. A false positive clone for the optics, but delusional with confidence. Another lone speaker sovereign in the land of milk and honey. Obligations, let the burnums blossom. Thou shalt not kill unless your death will bear us profits. Levitated when they pull the ladders up behind them. Try lockstepping with benign while moving on up. Had them like, I don't think the badge suits me. You wanna leave with what you came with, better pledge fealty. And they still put tolls on that brand new high road that make them skip town, no hesitating. Consistently the sole provider. And what it did it for your patience. Bittersweet when I flew the cooke to Hades.
Miles Cook, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, it's our pleasure. So I thought we could kick things off by digging into the project that you released earlier this year. I'm not even going to attempt to say the title because I will embarrass myself. I tried to practice earlier today and the French wasn't Frenchin'. So I'll just say that the title of this project, the English translation is This Is Not a Portrait. If you want to pronounce it for the listeners, you can.
No, I'm good on that as well.
Okay. So everyone needs to know that the translation is This Is Not a Portrait. That's the most important takeaway from this, right? So the more I listen to the project, the more this concept makes sense to me. It feels like you're holding up an outward facing mirror that allows people to see life as it is throughout this project. You're offering realness, not abstraction. And sometimes that directness can be a lot for people to swallow. And I'm wondering, did you intentionally create a space that would force listeners to examine and sit in their discomfort? And is that something that you had to do when you're making this project?
I don't know if I'd say I was intentionally trying to make people uncomfortable. I will say that though, it was a conscious effort to turn the gaze outward a lot on this record, because my previous work was very introspective.
Mm.
And I knew I wanted to write from a different place. So yeah, there was definitely a conscious effort. It was like, I'm going to push my pen outwards on this record. So making people uncomfortable was never the intention, even though I guess broaching some, potentially uncomfortable topics on the record.
More than any other project in recent memory, I felt like I needed to understand the title before anything else. I'm also not going to attempt to say the title in French, so we're all in agreement. From what I can gather, though, this title is a reference to a surrealist picture series by the artist Miguel Valinas.
No, no, no. This is Renee McGree.
I was going to say that picture series also is a reference to Renee McGree.
Oh, okay. You're more hip than I am then.
Well, so the picture series that I'm talking about, the artist titled it "This Is Not a Portrait." This photo artist is actually seems to be asking similar questions as the 1929 painting by Renee McGree, which is painting. For those who don't know, was a painting of a smoker's pipe with the words in French, "This is not a pipe," written under it. The idea was to encourage questions about identity seeking, dreams and desires about who we think we are, what we would like to be, what we are in reality. So back to your album. The title suggests that you're also asking questions about identity, specifically perhaps how life in present day New York like impacts identity. How does this album, your album, continue the examination started by the surrealist artists that came before you?
Oh man. um I how do I want to answer this? I I was really trying to navigate a lot of the space of like being introduced into the rap zeitgeist, if you will, and grappling with how I felt about that, how I was going to exist in this space. What does it mean to be working with all these talented people, coming under the eye of criticism, just existing. Like, what does it mean to be in the performance space? What is it like, et cetera, et cetera. So that's just like that's the personal part of the record that I'm trying to navigate. Then the other layer, if you will, is just kind of like stepping outside of just the immediacy of what like my interpersonal relationships with my own music and uh, other fellow artists, and just how does that exist in the world? How do I exist in the world? What is the purpose of like doing this work? Is it worth doing this work? You know, like the question, there's a laundry list of questions that come with like trying to navigate it. So just trying to figure that out essentially. I hope that answers your question a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're considering your identity as an artist in the genre, so to speak, but also just like your identity in the world in general.
Then also like I guess I left this part out, which is like staunchly my identity as an artist isn't my identity as a person. And I'm trying to figure that out as well. And that kind of like influenced the title a lot. As much as like the music I'm making is a representation of who I am, it's not who I am.
Right, which is the reference, right? So this is not a pipe, it's just a painting of a pipe.
Tim Fish did the cover art for this album, and he's also worked with artists like Fatboy Sharif, Hester Valentine. It's a really beautiful piece. And I was wondering, what about Tim's work made you want to collaborate with him, and how does his vision align with This Is Not a Portrait and your artistry in general?
So I had the album title before I saw that photo. And I kind of like I had been privy to Tim's work. Obviously, as you mentioned, he's worked with a lot of rappers that we're all familiar with. He also did Hester Valentine's cover as well, and that's kind of like one of the ones that really stuck out for me. But I just knew like there's not like a really interesting story there. I just when I saw the photo, it was just like a one-to-one connection. I was like, that's got to be it, and I got to make this happen. They're like, no matter like what it takes, whatever hoops I have to jump through. Luckily, Tim's like he's really easy to work with. He was down to make it happen. So it was just like I already knew what the title of the project was, saw the photo, and I was like, that's got to be the cover. That's just like as far as I thought it through.
Yeah, shout out to Tim. I love his work. He's done incredible stuff, just like photography in general, but also album covers. You said that this record challenges listeners to question the boundary between reality and representation. Could you expand on this idea?
Did I say that?
I'm assuming you did. I'm assuming you did because there is, so if you look at the album on Spotify, right, there's a little write-up about it.
Oh, okay.
And this is some of the language it includes, and it said it was written by you. It might not have been. So I assume that you wrote those words. Maybe you didn't.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? I was
Yeah.
just like, I
Yeah, man.
wasn't trying to be facetious there.
No, no,
I
no.
don't remember saying that.
Yeah, no, no. Absolutely. So you said, or maybe you didn't say, that this record challenges listeners to question the boundaries between reality and representation. And I just wondered if you could expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, oh God. I'd say there's like I do use some surrealist themes in the record. But the abstract parts of the record are closely tied or rooted in realism. Um, and I feel like it's up to the listener to decide what is like me saying something directly or me kind of using fanciful language to take you someplace rooted outside of reality, or if I'm painting a picture like what do you get out of it that feels real or not real, right? So
Mhm.
I'm playing around with that a bit. It's not always a conscious effort, or I'm not always going like, hey, is this real to you or not? Right. I'm like, I don't sit down and write that way. That's just not how my process is. But
Mhm.
there's inherently parts of the record that they just I'm kind of using ideas or saying things that aren't necessarily have a one-to-one correlation to things that are rooted in reality. Um, so whether it's a challenge or not, it's like that's like goes listener to listener. But the intention was certainly to play around with those ideas.
When the sort of roles are reversed and you're listening to another artist's work, do you appreciate when they take a similar approach? Is that what keeps you engaged if you're listening to a project that's set up
Uh,
like that?
It's funny that you asked me that because I've been thinking a lot as I'm working on new material and like also in the scope of having had my work criticized. Like what is to like overdoing it or like dumbing it down, if you will, is like a simpler way to put it. And I think like for me personally, I think there's a time and a place for everything, right? So like sometimes I just want to hear like the most direct bar. I just want to hear rap, right? And I don't need like highfalutin language necessarily. And not to say that like that just makes work like just using different language puts work in a different context because you say things in a very direct way with using like highbrow, if you will, concepts, right? And it can still be very straightforward. I do, and I guess like we'll get to fantastic damage later. But like I do appreciate some level of like being challenged or being
Mm.
introduced to concepts that I'm not familiar with, right? So it's like I don't always want to sit down with a record and be like, I should learn something, right? This isn't a book report. But there is something to be said about that where like you are introduced to something you aren't familiar with. And like that's very exciting. I'm like, I do want to continue to learn things, right? So I personally try to put that in my work. I'm searching for things that I could rap about that people might not be familiar with, right? Because we've got 50 years of hip hop, everything, there's nothing new under the sun. So like what am I saying that hasn't been said before? It's like the onus is on me to do something interesting or different, right? But that's not the bar that I judge other music by. I just want to enjoy it. I get things out of all types of rap. So
The production on the record is great, and you got beats from folks like Foul Monk, Roper Williams, and Jeff Markey. And you produced three of the tracks on the album. You also make beats. When it came to using your own beats, what guided your choices?
a lot of that was, well, okay. I always produce for myself first, just so I'm not waiting on other people. That's not like a shade to other people. It's just how timelines work, right? And I also just like making beats. I'm not always like excited to rap on things I've created though. The ones I picked, I was very hyped about, and they also um, the people I reached out to, Def C, Rama, and Sketch, right? Like I thought their voices fit on those beats perfectly. And after that, it was kind of like filling in the space between it. And like I didn't want to produce this whole record myself because I knew it was just gonna take too long. I'm like very like particular about this. I was there was a certain sound I was looking for this record, and could I have gotten there independently? That remains to be seen. I just knew when I was working on this record, at the time there were sounds that I wanted on the record that I wasn't producing myself. That wasn't the only factor, but I went into it going, I want this record to be drum heavy and dark. And I often find myself making kind of like whimsical sounding things. So it was a challenge to step outside of that. I just like got lucky with the beat that I have sketch rapping on. Like get tapping into that energy is very difficult for me.
I was going to point out, that the three guest MCs on the record are all rapping on your beats specifically. It sounds like that was intentional. Like you made those beats, you heard them, and you're like, oh, I want to have these folks featured on them.
Yeah, it was 100% like everybody I reached out to when I had already written my verse and going like, I can hear your voice on this. Do you want to be on the record? And it was like that was like as far as I thought it through. It just coincidentally, these are all like Chicago based. Well, Sketches in New York, but he's from Chicago. So it's just like pure coincidence that all the features have ties to Chicago. But yeah, it was the intention there is just like I'm hearing the loop, I'm hearing the beat, and going like I can hear Def C, like I could just hear his voice on it. Same with Rama, same with Sketch. So it worked out like I was just very fortunate that they were willing to the steps of the record.
When I listen to This Is Not a Portrait, there are times when I can't tell if you're being cynical, sarcastic, or cautiously optimistic. And that's one of the things I like about the project. It feels like you're straddling a lot of different emotions and narratives, which feels very relatable. Did you have a vision for the way you wanted to approach storytelling on the album when you were creating it?
Not there's not like a deliberate intention with the storytelling other than trying to be as genuine to myself as possible. I think I grapple with all of those emotions, feelings in my personal life, and I think that's just like it's going to naturally come out in the work I'm doing.
Mm.
There's also times on the record where I can't tell whether I'm being cynical or honest or not, and listening back to it or even having like performed some of it recently, like having to be conscious of some of the things I said and like what was the intention? Do I still feel the same way as when I wrote it? There's a lot of like jumping around, jumping between emotions that it's just kind of like pun intended, a portrait of myself. As much as I said this record's not a direct representation of myself, there's inherently going to be parts of myself that end up coming through. And a lot of that in the storytelling is just like kind of there's some one-to-one parody in my life with that.
I want to ask about the track Sangria. The opening lines are pretty heavy, so I'm going to read some of them. You say, Memory, that fickle bastard, a B-roll of the bitter hours, sat and watched the reruns to the spite touch was mitigated.
Mitigated.
Mitigated. Sorry, I can't read. Let me
That's
try that
all.
again. Sat and watched the reruns till the spite touch was mitigated. Absentee participant, unhinged mostly, sought solace. Now it burn through the palm holding rosaries. A charm life is. Okay, I think I got that right this time. So, like I said, these words feel really weighted, and they touch on, you know, what I mentioned earlier. Just this idea of like sort of sitting in discomfort, whether this was your intention or not, it feels like that's partly what you're doing through this track and processing the heavy in a very direct way. When you engage in this practice through your art, does the burden feel lighter than it does when you've had to navigate challenging experiences when you're not in a creative space? I'm wondering, so when you are processing all of these emotions through your art, right? I'm wondering if that feels like less of a burden and less overwhelming because you're doing it through a creative outlet versus when you're not in the creative outlet, when you're not rapping and you're just sort of like in the world and you're navigating this stuff. Is it a bit heavier then?
So yeah, there's definitely a level of catharsis that comes with this process, especially like you quoting those opening lines of Sangria as like there's a very tangible thing that happened in my life that inspired those words.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I got to writing it, it was like it's time to put it behind me and like not be like reliving this moment. And that's where the memory being a fickle bastard part comes from. It's like keep remembering like, something that was painful, but and the B-roll part, right? And like writing it, like getting it out and music it's just like an opportunity for me to put it to rest, you know? So there's definitely a huge level of catharsis that comes with creating these songs. And it's funny enough, it's like I do know the like what inspired that work, but like it's like now it's so far behind me that it's like I can't even remember why it was like affecting me so much that I felt the need to write those words, right? So
Mm,
yeah, I think a lot of, and not, it doesn't always have to have that much gravity. There's like as much as like humor as I put into like a song like Zugzwang, right? But at the time it was like it wasn't funny to me. Like I just hated my upstairs neighbor, right? And I just like wanted to make light of it. So like, that's one example of that. And then Sangria is like me kind of grappling with, maybe a kind of darker, heavier topics, but also just like finding a place where I can be like, I'm done thinking about this. Let's get it out and move on.
yeah.
You mentioned Zugzwang. It's a track with you and Dev C. You're venting about difficult, rude neighbors.
This wanna fuck you to my upstairs neighbors. See me with the hatred, get a sound off bladed. Miss me with the eye to eye, had to take it with the whole damn salt shaker. Don't call me when you need a grain finally. Lately missed the mark, I'm untimely. The bastardized version of myself minded, how we left the high road behind us. And whoever's next at bet we swinging for the fences or left by the wayside. The price of doing business, kinda. Sign of the times dire, at least give it a day to claim the base requirements. I had a vision of the most unlikely, and the vengeance in my thoughts fight informed on a page politely. Let it be cake, I'm feeling pious. The other shoe dropped to feed the fire, burn it down, screaming this the finest. Inconsideration meets defiance, been blinded by the rage of the dumb drums bumping something. Definitely a reason that a sight unseen is sleeping nightly. Rent's too high for kindness, kill the noise is not an option. Silence came in sample sizes, peace I've known is long forgotten. Two cheaters pirouette into a fall problem. Apartment hunting Zugzwang, super like you get what you pay for, don't bother me. Cause any move I make is detrimental. Fuck it. We should burn it down. Cause any move I make is detrimental. Fuck it.
Just as an aside, for those who, like me, don't know what Zugzwang means, it's a term used, I had to look this up, it's a term used in chess to describe a situation in which any legal move puts said player in a worse position than they were currently in. This past week, I moved into a new apartment, and I've already had some unpleasant run-ins with the upstairs neighbors, including music being played at 4 a.m., although it wasn't Kelly Clarkson, like Def C's neighbor in the song. But unfortunately, this track has felt super relevant to me this week. And I've been wondering if, I mean, it sounds like there was a specific situation behind the idea for this track with a specific person, as opposed to like years of experiences with neighbors.
Yeah, no, I was living in an apartment in Crown Heights at the time, and I had been in that apartment for about 3 years. And from the day I moved in to the inception of this song, it was always an issue. Yeah, even I think I said this somewhere else, but I remember because I was recording from home for a lot of this. I remember recording this and feeling kind of timid, sheepish, saying the line because I was like, what if my upstairs neighbor could hear me? And then at some point just being like, no, fuck you. Like this is why this song was written, and just like getting it out, you know? But yeah, there's one person in particular this song was inspired by. I don't live in that apartment anymore, fortunately, but to to the point or title of the song, it's like anywhere you move that you're gonna find an issue with it. There's no utopian place to live, or at least I haven't found that yet. So the search goes on, I guess.
Yo, I need to hear that right now, so I'm grateful. I appreciate that. I'm gonna sleep better tonight, I think. Maybe with some earplugs. Def C's verse is great. Did you give him any specific prompts, or was it just like rap about bad neighbors?
He had the title, he had and I pitched it to him just like, this is a song about how much I hate my upstairs neighbor, and he's like, I'm in. Like I love the title. I love the concept. He said something, I mean, like I'm paraphrasing here, but yeah, he was in when I pitched him the idea. So and I just knew when I heard the beat, I was like, oh, he's gonna absolutely crush this. So which he did. So
Did he add in the singing on his own, or was that something you like had asked for?
I remember I kind of did like kind of just was doing like scat over where the hook would be. And I was like, hey, maybe we could fill this in with words, you know? And it just kind of like it ended up becoming like an amalgamation of there's like three different layers happening in that part. And it wasn't exactly the original idea. But I think it worked out as good as it like I could have hoped for.
Yeah. You referred to some of your beats as whimsical before. This beat has that feel, but also like captures the like way that bad neighbors just make you feel crazy. They just like drive you up the wall. There's another track on the album called Oniromancy. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I had to use a dictionary to prep for this episode more than any other in recent memory, which I loved, by the way.
My apologies. I think
No, I enjoyed it. I'm learning things, you know. But again, for those who don't know, the word refers to the interpretation of dreams in order to foretell the future. In this case, it seems we're talking about the American dream. I'm curious about when this song was written.
oh man, I think this was the last song I wrote for the project. Or yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the last song I wrote for the project. And I kind of like I remember I there was like a pretty specific conversation I had with Sketch because I was just kind of like burnt out. I was putting like I put a lot of energy into the writing up to that point, and not to say I like took any break here either, but it's like I don't know where to go with the record. I feel like I've like kind of run a lot of the ideas that I was going to talk about on the record into the ground. I was like kind of at a loss for what to talk about next, if you will. So I can't. Okay, where did I start with this? I just like I remember having a conversation with Sketch. He's like just like I think pretty much you just like abandon like all of everything you've already been writing about, like forget about that. Don't like put the pressure on like necessarily like worry about it being cohesive in a sense. Because like I knew I wanted to have this like through line with religion throughout the record, right? And he was going like it's okay if it's not, right? So that's kind of like I can't remember exactly how um the song came to be. But a lot of it was just like I didn't know what to write about, and this was what came out of it. I wish I had like a more specific. I wish I had a better memory of like the writing process for this, but it was really just kind of like born out of I would say necessity and like not wanting to slack on a Jeff Markey beat. So I knew I didn't just want to say anything. And then I also didn't know what I was going to talk about. And that kind of the combination of those two things made this song happen.
I'm curious if you were to write this song like now, like today, would you say something different, or do you think it would sound?
Um, I think it would sound pretty similar, actually. I mean, like some of the lines probably maybe I'd punch up and it'd be like I try to avoid being too on the nose, you know, like that's just not how I like to present my ideas to the world, right? So I think I'm just sorry, I'm just like kind of running through some of the lyrics in my head. I mean, like they still ring true to me. I don't think I would need to change too much there. And there's like some unfortunate aspect to that as well, right? But I'm also referencing like the history of this country in a lot of ways, or at least like my experience living in America. But obviously, like, you know, dating back to even before I was alive, a lot of that rings true and influenced like the writing in that song. So I don't think there would be too much I would change about it if I wrote it today.
Gary Suarez of Cabbages wrote the liner notes for this album. In his description of the project, he suggests that you loosely liken yourself to Job, the biblical figure. And for people that don't know, Job was a man who experienced a lot of hardships in life. Like, the Bible says, as it says, he like lost his children, his wealth, like he goes through a bunch of shit. And despite everything he goes through, he remained devoted to God. I was wondering, with this comparison, when you think about what you had to navigate throughout your life, namely the challenges you faced, do you think you've maintained a similar relationship with faith?
I think when I'm talking about God, for me, I think there's like this Quincy Jones quote when he's like, and I'm probably gonna butcher this a little bit, but he's like, if you're thinking about music when you're, or if you think about money when you're working on music, God walks out of the room. And I remember
Mm,
having that feeling creating something, and it's kind of like rang true with the process for me. So to answer your question, as much as possible is like I've like maintained my faith in the art of continuing to create things. And like that's where
mm,
I find God, right? Those
mm,
moments. And I haven't really wavered, right? I've been as long as since childhood, I've been involved in some type of artistic or musical practice. It's been that way since I'd say fourth grade, right? I just am now getting some recognition for things I've created, but I've worn many hats, right? There was a period in my life where it was just I was DJing, so I was like heavily into scratching, and that was like very early in my formative years. And then running like producing, skateboarding, et cetera, right? Even dip my toe in visual art and like totally different alias and like work that I never want people to see. But again, to answer your question, keeping the faith, that's how I've done it. It's just like staying true to intention and creating things and finding uh, God in those moments.
mm. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I'm curious then about something you said earlier that you seem to want to or be intentional about like a religious thread through the album. Did that feel connected to your artistry in some way or your identity?
Yeah, I would try to there was something I don't want to say there's like an exact moment or that guided why I wanted to like kind of tackle some religious themes on this record. But I've had a contentious relationship with religion pretty much my whole life. It's not like an ongoing struggle or anything. I'd say like one of the earliest songs on the record was the verse I wrote for The Devil Part Didn't Change. Um, and just like looking around the world, it's like so many times people invoke God to do like these horrible, horrific things and being like sick of seeing that, right? That kind of was like a big part of like, I was like, I want to talk about this on the record, sometimes head on like that song and other times just like in the periphery and like my experience or with religion, right? So I'm not sure if that like exactly answers the question, but I can say that I remember like writing that verse and out of like born out of just seeing things in the news and media and being like it's like our faith, God, this, blah, blah, blah. And the whole time it's like we're bombing countries, but like because Jesus, right? So it's like the experience of like being bombarded with that and they're like, but I don't know if that's what God's about, right? It's like, or I very certainly know that's not what God's about. It's like if anybody spends any time reading, any any religious text, it doesn't have to be just the Bible, right? So I'll bookend it there. I feel like I'll just keep talking. I think that's a good place to stop on that answer.
I tunnel ran to the hidden habitats of Kalar's dark inferno. No turning path back. The half man have orders to burn the village and get out with both hands intact. I'm not a mechanism born from the stain. I had to be trained. Now I catcall with dead walkers. I'll send a postcard from the Nang if I can get onto the roof in time to hang from the leg of this last chopper. Son of an weed burner, perturbed, growing the road, rotating bug colors, brick textures, and others modified climate make nasty tongue plunge. Headshots, we're opposite of chameleon blends, cartoon dreadnoughts. There's this parasite inside my wide intestinal tract that took over my bone body before I had a chance to take my life back. And it's a broadband to surprise where I'm at the recruiter's office, learning how to get ahead and advertise. He said, sure, others have passes is the gate to definition, but that's not the singular attraction to the setup, not the action of the sacrifice of past draftees. Actually, more of a layaway duckers plan for young get up and go out motivators. See the new soldiers smolder different from the antiquated taste of stately hatred. But I came from Melbourne Options on a D train to the lobby. See academics play second on my life, no matriculated brain hobbies. Not my dedication in ranks, plus more training. Loss is not a big problem, it's all about what I became. When you get power, respect, an audience, a check, a car, money for school, honey with uniform fetish on your tool. Travel, 4 bonds, be a part of something, have a structure. Cash bullet, cash, well I make cash bonus. See this gold plat, you could own it. After killing $500,000, it's such a good feeling to earn your country's respect and love. So when you say, son, you my man, fucking sign me up.
Every episode, we spend the second half of the show talking about a hip-hop album chosen by our guest. And tonight, we are talking about Fantastic Damage by LP. So, Miles, tell us why you chose this album.
This is one of my favorite records. I'd say a record that had a huge impact on shaping my worldview. The ideas on this record still ring true. I think even people would call it prophetic, considering it was written pre 9/11, released post 9/11. I know that's been talked about ad nauseum, but it's like it still remains true. That's how the timeline was for this record. And I know, like, in my experience of the record, it was like tackling a lot of ideas I was trying to grapple with at a time where I'm in my formative years and not necessarily able to articulate all the things I'm feeling. Also, okay, so outside of that, also just sonically, this record was like nothing I'd ever heard before. It is very straight. If you like do your homework, there are very like straightforward parts of hip hop in there, but I also think like it's challenging those ideas as well with the production and kind of laid the foundation for a lot of indie rap that came after it, like not being scared to take risks. Yeah, and then just last but not least, I just love this record. So
I have no idea how old you are, so I'm just wondering when you found this album. Did you listen to it when it first came out? Like how did you discover it?
yeah, so I grew up skateboarding, and skate videos were like a big part of being exposed to a plethora of music. It was like a gift, right? And like not intentionally. I don't think anybody that grew up skateboarding is like, I'm just gonna become like a music aficionado because I'm being exposed to all these things, but like you inherently do. And I had gotten hit to Company Flow probably like 98, 99 because a couple of their songs were in skate videos. So I don't even like I was trying to before coming into this, I was trying to like really like pinpoint. It was like, how were we, me and my friends and I, like what were we doing to be up on music? I was like, it's so hard to remember, but I remember being in like I was anticipating this record. I bought this record the day it came out, and I was like a sophomore in high school. Like I had somebody drive me to the record store. I was waiting for it to drop. But it's like you got to like keep in mind that like the year prior we had Cannibal Ox, Cold Vein, and A$AP Rock Labor Days, right? So laying, we've already kind of set the bar really high for Def Jux records. But I was like, oh yeah, Funk Crusher Plus was already in heavy rotation at that point. And just like, yeah, I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by other kids skating that were really into like staying up on as much as music as possible. So it was like we were just trying to leave no stone unturned. Also, I had a friend, like his dad was a DJ at a radio station, so he just had like bookshelves of CDs. So Yeah, sorry, I know that's like a very long-winded way to answer the question, but like we were just always trying to stay up on top of like the latest anything really. It was like no genre was a faux pas, I guess.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so we're all around the same age then, I think. We're all in our 40s then. Okay.
No, I'm 37.
Oh,
2002.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I
I
fucked up
gra
the map. Yeah.
no,
Okay.
yeah, I graduated high school in 2005. So,
Oh, okay. We're old, and you are.
okay.
You're not
Yeah.
that. You're not there yet. Okay. All right.
Okay.
My math. My
But
my math was a little off. Okay.
it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, I was still in high school when this record dropped, and yeah,
Yeah.
I was in well, oh my God, I was a freshman when 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then like yeah, the following year getting this record was like contextualized a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's like songs like like The Nang, The Bush, oh my God, I'm butchering it already. The Nang, The Front, The Bush, and the Shit, right? So just like I wasn't this is also something I was thinking about, was just like not really having a sense of politics or anything like that up until
Mm-hmm.
like, this worldview shattering thing happens in our lives. I don't know how close you were to New York when it happened. I grew up in New Rochelle, so and like I was right outside the city. My mom was working in the city. She walked the West Side Highway until she got picked up by someone that dropped her off. I have like a very like I remember that day like it was yesterday, like getting home from school because we got out early, none of the channels working and shit like that, right? So I've had, it was like kind of like an awakening because like I was kind of living this like I was living in a dreamland, if you will, at that age. Just like I'm just gonna ride my skateboard, listen to music. I'm not worried about what's going on in the world. And then something like that happens, and you gotta have to like, you grow up a little faster, kind of thing. So
I lived in Pennsylvania. Then I was in central Pennsylvania, but I was close enough, and I will never forget that day either. I had to go to work. It was my first day at work, and all the terminals were down. So like no one could use. It was a grocery store, so no one could use the credit cards. You had to pay in cash, and it was like fucking chaos. So yeah, it was a crazy fucking day.
Yeah, but how close were you to
We were probably like I think like 2 hours or so, where the plane crashed in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I think we're about like 2 hours away. So it was close enough that our systems were down.
yeah, I was in Philly, a freshman in college at the time. And it's trite at this point, but it's something you'll never forget.
Yeah.
I wish that I had been tapped into LP and Def Jux at this time because I feel like, I think this is what you're saying, Miles. That I feel like this record would have helped me process, what happened in a different way.
yeah, I'm trying to think of like other music I was listening to at the time. I was like real into Def Jokes. I was just like die hard, I didn't develop like maturity and listening to hip hop until probably the middle of college or early in college, where I was like, it's okay to enjoy things for fun, right? There was like I was kind of just like, oh, if it's not like you know, kind of esoteric, like really heavy like rap, I was like, I don't want to hear it. I have like a very staunch relationship to the bad boy era of rap. I have an older sister that was like real into that, and I was like, I was I was so opposed to it, and I came around later. I'm a huge Jada fan now, but at the time, I had nothing to do with that. Um, but yeah, this record was. I had already been spending Labor Days pretty heavy, and yeah, I was ready for this record. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I don't think like there was like preparing yourself for it, but I was walking into it going like, I know it's going to be a challenge because I knew how much time I had already spent with Labor Days and going like I'm still at like by the time was like I can't remember the exact month, but it was like maybe September, 2001, something like that, September, November, and then, walking into May 2002, going like, whatever I'm about to hear, like, you know, buckle up, right? It's going to be like, you're going to have to do some homework because it's just like I'm very young at this point. I'm not getting all the references. I'm not understanding all the concepts, but I was like very excited for the opportunity to be exposed to these things. So it's like I think like I'd say like, you know, like getting being privy to like slavery and things like that, right? You know, it's like this they're not teaching you this in the school, right? And but it's like things I feel like I should be aware of. I feel like it also in my adult life these are the records that like shaped my political views, right? Being disillusioned with the government, how like fallen by the wayside in society, consumerism. Like these are all topics and themes that are being dealt with on this record that it's just like you're not getting from like well 100% you're not getting from school, but like you're also not getting it from the rap records that are exactly about
Right.
consumer culture. They're telling you to go buy shit, right? So it's like it's nice that there was a place where you could go and find out about. They're like, hey, maybe it's not a good thing that you always get the new iPhone, right? Like this is that type of record. Like so yeah.
You're saying that you sort of came across Def Jux and like Company Flow and then LP through just skateboard culture and community. So I'm curious, like thinking about that, you were saying about just like consuming this album, just like, not being ready for it and just kind of like, I would imagine like listening to it and studying it. Did you do that like in a collective space too? Like, were you talking about this album with like peers? Like,
Oh, certainly. I mean, like I had like I'd say like there was like a core five of us that was always trading music. And when it was like the type of thing where it was like we were all trying to process it. It's like somebody might catch something from a song and be like, yo, do you like you get that, right? You know? I had like was fortunate like to have one of my friends was in AP English at the time, and he was the one that was always ahead of the curve because he's just reading processing information at a higher level than us. I was more of always like a math guy, so I was just like, "Yo, you got that, right?" So, yeah, it was always there was a dialogue. There's like a dialogue like as much as like if you were like reading current events and having a conversation with your friends about like what's going on in the world. There's the same thing with the music, right? So and we were like actively trading. You got to keep in mind this is like a time where we're getting like it's starting to become commonplace for everybody to have a computer that can burn CDs, right?
mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
just like getting like a stack of those. So it's like if one person buys a record, then all everybody in your friend group has it. So it's like, we're not working at the time. So it was always like you get that record, I get this one, and now we both have it. And we're gonna be having a conversation about the music we're sharing.
Oh, I love that so much.
One of my favorite, this is kind of random, but it just came to me. One of my favorite memories that I have associated with this album was I was at a church event. At the time I was going to church. It was like some like retreat or something. There were a bunch of people sitting around a fire, a bunch of church people sitting around a fire. And there was this teenager kind of like off by himself, like listening to headphones. And my friend asked him, "What are you listening to?" And he said, "Fantastic Damage." And we were both like, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? It didn't make any sense, but I thought this is immediately the coolest teenager at a church event that I'd ever met.
Did you talk to him after that about the
About
album?
that up.
Yeah.
Um, no, he was like super awkward, didn't want to
Oh,
talk to anybody, just wanted to listen to his headphones. So I left,
okay.
I left him alone.
That might have been a wise choice. Miles, I'm wondering if you could talk about just some of the ways that LP influenced you as an MC and also as a producer, if at all.
I'd say definitely less on the production side. I can't. I like, or I don't want to say can't because I haven't tried probably enough. But his next level, I wouldn't even put myself in that conversation. That's like I feel it's disrespectful. But obviously, I love his production. I'd say like from an MC level, a lot of the topics on this record, again, like um, not only did they shape my view of the world, they're like things that I kind of try to grapple on my record, or and that's an ongoing process, right? So just like I'd say, like, like the dystopian nature of the world. There's heavy themes of that on this record. I'm also like a huge sci-fi buff. Like, I was thinking a lot about how, like you start asking like the philosophical questions after seeing like The Matrix in '99, right? I like remember seeing that in the theater twice in a row. It was like that good to me at the time because I was like, it wasn't things I was being exposed to and conversations I wasn't having. And then, fast forward a few years later, getting to a record that's like talking about these things and the nature of reality and your relationship with like a society that like your uh food for what is how do I want to say it, like another cog in the wheel kind of thing, like it's easy to get lost or left by the wayside in society. Something that's like I like have to grapple with just like existing in the world, right? So there's all that's a lot of that's a huge influence on it was a huge influence on my work, and I'd like to think I'm, hopefully navigating that space in my work to date. I think also stylistically, just like not being scared to do slant rhymes and things like I'm like nobody wants to see how the sausage is made type of thing, but like it's not always an on the nose rhyme. It's not like always the easiest pattern to follow. I mean, like even on like the title track, like it's just like you're getting bombarded with sound and lyrics like right out the gate. Also, I'd say like the cinematic quality, how he opens the record, like I don't want to say I bit it, but like I was definitely influenced it by it. Like I think there's something about like, making the record an experience that I definitely took note of from this work as well. I mean, I got like to be completely forthcoming, is like this is one of the records I was listening to a lot when I was working on my project. So
Mm.
it was this one, his second solo, and like a lot of like None Shall Pass and Labor Days. So and then yeah, it was like those there was that was a huge heavy in the rotation while I was working on my latest. So and just like trying to revisit like how exciting it was to hear this music as a child and try to like use that as like motivation to like find a place to draw from. So
I was saying to Rob before you hopped on that it's almost like I forget how good LP is as a producer. And then until I like hear his music again and I'm like, God damn it. And it's just not it's not only that he's good, it's that it's just so I think you were like saying this, it's there's nothing else like it. Like there is no other production like his. It's one of one and it's so fucking I don't know. He just like puts together this collage of like sounds that is just so fucking unique to me.
yeah, I can't think of a record that came out around this time that even like begins to touch what is happening on here. And even like I'd say to date, like this is still the production on this record is unique, solely unique,
Hmm.
Um and that's like yeah, I think it still holds up.
No, yeah. I mean everything you're saying. Yeah.
I think a lot of like timeless records that sound like they're out of time, rely, at least for me, rely heavily on sampling like jazz and soul records, music that like people know or are vaguely familiar with. This record is so different. It still feels timeless to me, but I don't know why. I think it's just because it sounds so different. And the way he samples is obviously like very different. He's not sampling things that are familiar. If he's sampling it all, it's really unique in that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some sample base level to the production here, but I think I'd say this record's timeless for me, especially because like when I heard it, I think it'd be interesting to hear what it sounds like to someone that hasn't listened to it like right now. You know, like the hip hop fan that just like kind of isn't familiar with LP's solo work, but might know Run the Jewels, right? Or even just like the hip hop fan that hasn't like gone down this rabbit hole. And it's like we're well over 20 years later on this record. I would love to hear, and like, obviously the reaction, like it'll vary, but I would love to hear this record having not heard it right now, like to get to hear experience it for the first time would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, if you are listening to I think the kind of music that a lot of us are, where there's so many drumless beats now,
Mm.
you put this on, it's gonna blow your mind.
Yeah, again, that was like when I was like reaching out to people, other producers. So I was like, I want some of their show up on my record, like what it feels like to get to Dead Disney, right? Maybe I didn't get reach those highs as much as I would have liked, but there was a concerted effort to get there because I listened to Dead Disney today, and as soon as the drums drop, it's as exciting to hear it again as it was the first time.
Retarded on a boombox frame. When all the funny little games are dead. Rush said he didn't like the name. Try to tell me that my people's on death. Rebels spill the pattern and dust up rock with a mad had a thought. Trying to act fly, Mr. Cole's wild ride, get ingested without prejudice. Daddy's revenge on Oedipus, standing on the precipice, holding heads with your pedal to lecherous manipulator of old sick Joe. Lives wanna be real and conceal the nose broke. First row of the show, trying to front you get choked. Slave Bambi, sprayed his whole family, trying to act cute, got his hoops in my pants. Product through the woods, destitute man Aggie, brainwashed badly, propaganda had. When the design of modern culture is modeled afternoon, bottled and packaged with emotions for kiddies to get. I come with damage that's spectacularly uncomfortable. Vomiting rotted language added, thorns will wear rabbit.
And there's a bunch of songs on this record like that. Like they just like they get right in your face, and they don't take the foot off the gas at all.
They get
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, they get right in your face. I had this record on like while I was I just moved into a new apartment, like I said earlier. So I was like cleaning and organizing stuff, and I put this record on, kind of like intending for it to be background music, but there were multiple times when the drums would hit and I'd have to stop what I was doing and be like, oh shit, this still slaps so hard.
You just want to like throw your shit around and just
Knock over piles of books.
you should have blasted it all the way up and said, fuck you, neighbors.
I turned it up pretty loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
I
like,
mean,
I can do that too.
Yeah, there you go. This is the perfect album to do that. I just have one more question, Miles. Do you still have your original copy of this album?
Unfortunately, I don't. I had the deluxe edition as well, which it was like the only place you can get the lyrics. But I lost pretty much all of my childhood keepsakes in a flood. Like I had
Oh,
there's it's hard to even talk about. But
I'm
I mean, like
sorry.
I've no, it's fine. I've since let go. It's been years now, but I had boxes and boxes of all of this shit, and yeah, that's all gone now. Um, but I wish I did still have that. Because I can remember what it felt like to buy. I remember I could like picture the store and like walking into it and getting that record. Well, it's a CD. I keep calling it record. But I bought the CD. But yeah, I don't have any of that shit. I don't have like any of my VHS skateboard tapes, none of that.
Mm,
It's all gone. And we're talking, I'm like things I'd masked over years and years.
yeah.
So
Ugh.
but I am pretty sure the MP3s I have were ripped from the original CD. because I've been transferring data from hard drive to hard drive since childhood. And it's just unfortunate some of that also got lost. But I've had like the MP3s I have are like a lot of them are ripped from the original CDs, and like I'm sure I don't know. Some people say like the files actually degrade over time. I can't hear it. I was listening to like I don't know. That shit sounds crazy to me. But anyway, that's that's total tangent. That's not answering your question. I don't have it. Yeah, it's gone. It's lost to the sands of time, unfortunately.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's not your fault.
I had a similar situation, Miles. I had a fire several years ago in the apartment building where I was living in. I lost all of my shit. So I feel that pain. There are still times where I'm like, ah, damn, I wish I had that still.
I think this is gonna sound really dark, but it's like the new death of a loved one. It's like death of physical and digital media. Like having a hard drive crash is akin to like losing someone you love, because it's just like the attachment you have to these things becomes like very tangible, you know? I had a hard drive that had well over a decade of digital photos ranging from high school like well through my like mid 20s. And there's like memories on those I can never get back. And oh man, it's been a long time since that hard drive crashed, but like there's still times I'm just like I want to go through those photos again, you know? Like
Yeah.
there's so many moments, because I used to carry a camera everywhere. You know, it's what I studied in college. So I studied photography. So there was like I never left the house without a camera for years. And then I think after that was done, I was like, I think I'm ready to move on. Digital photo library, like it's like that part of my life is over, right? Again, sorry, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, there is something like the gravity of losing physical and digital media. I think is some like in one breath you can be like it's just stuff. But I would love to have my original copy of Fantastic Damage. I wish I still had it, especially the deluxe edition. Like there wasn't a lot of those floating around, you know, and I went out of my way to get that. So I'm sure you can find it on Discogs or something like marked up like crazy. Maybe.
Yeah, probably. No, but I mean, it's not, I don't think it's not just stuff though, right? Like, cause I have CDs that I have had since high school and I'm 41. So like, and I won't get rid of them. I refuse to. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Well, Miles, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you for picking this album and thank you for coming through and talking about your work. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my record as well. And yeah, it was a great conversation.
Absolutely. The project's out. This is not a portrait. We're not going to say it in French, but I'm sure you can find it regardless. Is there anything that you want folks to know about upcoming projects, where they can buy This Is Not a Portrait?
I'm going to plug, if you're in New York, April 29th, I'll be at Transpicos with Hava I, Dunce Cap, and Black Chai. Support my work on Bandcamp. I mean, we all know streaming doesn't pay anything. So if you fuck with the music and you want to support the artist and like my ability to keep making work, please buy the record on Bandcamp. And I will keep upcoming projects on the hush, but things are brewing. So just keep your eyes peeled and see you in the hopefully near future.
Right.
Very good. Looking forward to all of that. Folks, this has been The Next Movement. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Inherited the foul karma, Brooklyn absolutists to the Bronx bombers, Route 66 to where the angels sleep and etched into the night sky. I love Lucy, stayed with a TV dinner, first time caller, what's the new dilemma? SOS, man of the house, burning off-brand matchbooks at the commencement party, front page placed and made it sound urgent, the moment's tattooed on my forearm forever, glimpse of Americana, wake, work, sleep, and never found purpose, apostatized the mission for the world's stages, poverty production in line to a white-collar Nazi engagement where all the corporate refugees remain faceless. Had relief, reform, recovery, hanging with the one size fitted for maintenance. Just trying to keep the roof over my head daily. Basic needs can't be expected crazy. You wouldn't even think it when you see the paychecks. Rock the born again until it's habit forming. Or when reading tea leaves starts to lose its entertainment. Facing those the penchant for subservience is so invigorating. I ain't even judging, making past the jakes. You still got Big Brother waiting with eyes rolling to the back. They follow margin orders. Guess we'll call them patriots. And tell them bring more guns in. Shoot them in the back while they run a new snuff film. Let's make it public. Y'all having fun yet? The American dream beneath the sunset.